Welcome everyone to your monthly dose of Ashes of Creation updates. Today we have some very promising news about the world map, nodes, caravans and more. So let's get right into it. We are kicking things off with significant changes to the world map. Here is all the glorious information you need to know. The map size has been significantly increased. This is the new world map in all its 1200 square kilometer glory. What is important here is the orientation of the continents and islands that are facilitating specific types of intercontinental trade gameplay. This supports the relevance of the caravans moving across the landmass to locations that will now incorporate harbor areas, which aren't identified on the map shown here. But the important part in this update was providing a lot of coastal naval gameplay between zones and trade routes. The map of the world in Ashes of Creation is not randomly generated and begins covered in a fog of war. Players will not be able to see the world until they have explored it or gathered information about it. The world is also full of imperfect information, which will require the player to act on it for verification. For example, you may hear a rumor in a tavern that tells you the location of a cave full of weak kobolds. But this was not accurate, as the rumor was started by well-equipped bandits in order to fool overconfident adventurers. When information is gathered or the player has successfully explored an area, points of interest are marked on the map. These points of interest are determined by node progression, and not every server will share the same map, as player decisions will vary from server to server. Let's talk about the world size. As I mentioned earlier, 1200 square kilometers is the expected total world size of Vera at launch, including land, which is 480 square kilometers, and water/ocean, which is 750 square kilometers, but excluding the size of the Underrealm. As comparison, the previous total size of the map was less than half of what we have now. In short, the reason given for expanding the map size was to better accommodate naval content and to reduce the overall content density in the world.
The purpose of it becoming bigger is, as I said, to make sure that that density isn't overwhelming, right? That it isn't everywhere I look, there is immediately something. I have no opportunity to see, areas of the world that are expansive and are, just kind of wanderlust adventure feeling. Right? You didn't want you were sitting, everything was sitting on top of you at POIs and nodes and houses and everything, right? It was like an urban area everywhere. No, it wasn't like that. But we wanted to expand that because a large portion of the game is a sandbox element, right? It's coupled with a lot of curated content.
Here are some estimated travel times in this new world, in case you are curious.
Why is travel important? We've talked about this in the past. You know the reasons why. We've all existed in games where teleportation is very easy to use. And sometimes that can be a detriment because you may have activities like a caravan run that's happening and one person sees you from a certain guild and they do the raid call out to their guild. Everyone open your portals and come here within a split second. And we're going to just, mob this group. No, well, instead, that opportunity doesn't exist. If you want to provoke or to gank, an operation of another guild, you need to have foreknowledge. You need to prepare. You need to place your forces around that area, and that is an important aspect. Another important change that has occurred is the open seas is now an automatic flagged location. So when you move off of land, right, we have a flagging system that protects. And the open seas are international waters where you need to be careful. And there is a lot of opportunity at sea. And because there's a lot of opportunity that's unique to that content, that's unique to that sea, that's treasure finding, that's NPCs, that's a lot of different stuff. There needs to be risk associated with opportunity. We've always said risk and reward, right? Opportunity and risk, that's how you weigh actions. And players now know when they move into the open sea, they are doing so in a method that requires them to be cognizant of their player surroundings. Who is near me? Who can mess with me? Who do I need to make friends with? Who do I know my enemies are? Who can I forge alliances with? How can I create flotillas of protection? In my opinion, this type of change creates a very compelling type of gameplay And not everybody is excited about PvP, but as I've always said, Ashes of Creation is not meant to be the game for everyone, right? There are a lot of games where it is entirely safe to exist on a server, and you don't have to worry about threats or risk, right? It's just all opportunity. I know I'll eventually get the trophy, right? I just need to run in the hamster wheel a bit longer, and then I'm going to get there. Like that, everyone gets that trophy. What we want to do with Ashes is we want to
Got to work for it.
Rethink that approach, right? We want to encourage intelligent calculations of risk versus reward, right? These are elements that I think players feel really accomplished when they know that they overcame risk for the trophy, right? That not everybody makes it, but I did.
The biggest moments that I remember from MMOs have always been the ones that we, it was a trial and tribulation for, like the big raid boss, getting world forced on that and how challenging it was.
So basically, I think Steven got inspired by Sea of Thieves.
Captain!
Yeah, yeah?
No!
Oh, fuck! No, 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 no! No!
Next up, we have a few changes to the node system as well. There will be 85 regular node locations at launch, with 15 additional castle nodes, for a total of 100 nodes. Previously, the developers estimated 103 regular node locations with 15 additional castle nodes for a total of 118 nodes. This decrease in node count does not affect the amount of available player housing or the estimated server capacity.
When we were doing the calculations behind how in Alpha 2 and in the game we want these vassal structures to exist, we had more nodes than what felt meaningful. And we wanted to condense some of those curated story arcs and hooks into the environment and realm around the areas to be more bountiful at a lesser node value. Meaning bringing down the node count so that we can increase the richness of each of those nodes more than what was at 103.
So what are vassal nodes, you might ask? Well, in short, stage 3 or higher nodes may enslave nearby nodes, converting them into vassals. Here is a diagram that shows what a level 6 node can control.
2 level 5 nodes, of which a level 5 node can control 1 level 4 and 1 level 3 as direct vassals. And then the 4 can control a 3, and every 3 can control a 1 or a 2. Now, if the 3 gets removed through siege, the 1 or the 2 is removed as well.
An interesting thing to note is that a vassal network can extend across seas and also include islands. Vassal nodes gain benefits from their parent node, even if the node type of the parent is different from the vassal.
It is not a bad thing to be vassaled. It is a good thing to be vassal. It brings many benefits from the sovereign, which is the ultimate parent of that vassal network, down to the vassal node itself. And it allows that vassal node to even live outside of its normal mechanics, right? You get to adopt some of the benefits that the node type of your sovereign is, even if your node type as a vassal node isn't the same.
And the reveals do not stop here. We also get to learn about a new system named policies. Node policies are unlocked by various activities within a node that either increase or decrease the happiness state of the node. High levels of happiness will unlock more policies. Low levels of happiness might even disable certain NPCs or services within a node. The mayor is able to assign policies to policy slots within the node that citizens are then able to vote for within a 24-hour or shorter time period. Node policies that are deployed will provide benefits to various aspects of the node, its citizens, its zone of influence, its vassals, specific buildings, and to its mayor.
There's some questions in regards to if those policies affect just the metropolis or the city that you're in, or if they trickle down to the vassal nodes as well.
Very good question.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit earlier when we were talking about the vassal structures, that some of the benefits you can receive by being a vassal of a certain parent is access to a policy that your node might not normally have access to. And in fact, you can also unlock an additional policy slot based on certain conditions that the parent or sovereign node may have access to in their reliquary or in their achievement systems or in policies that they've elected. Some policies occupy multiple slots, and it's almost like a card structure, right? You have each of these policies that live on a card, and you get to select that card, throw it into the slot. It goes out to the citizens to vote on within a 24-hour or sometimes shorter period. The mayor has emergency actions they can take, right? Depending on certain predicates that get met. And if an emergency action occurs, they may be able to spend their influence as mayor within their term to set up a policy for a vote within an hour's period of time. And citizens, in that way, they can sneak it through a bit. I might not have been on in that hour. Like I come back and there's been some executive action determined by the mayor. What the heck is going on here? This better be a good decision or we're going to vote your butt out next election cycle, right? Like these are elements that you get to incorporate.
Next up, we have the updated Caravan system, which is an open-world PvP system that revolves around opportunity and risk. Caravans facilitate the transfer of goods for players wishing to turn a profit. Caravans are initiated from and arrive at caravanserai node buildings within village stage 3 nodes and above. The caravan system is a very big part of the node system. They are the main driver for economic activity, and there is a bunch of different types of caravans.
So remember we talked about, players create components, right, that live on the caravan, and that indicates a lot of different stat values of the caravan. It could be turning radius, turning speed, it could be movement speed, it could be armor, health, damage mitigation, all that kind of stuff, right? You do that at a caravansary, and a caravansary is a default building type that gets that comes along with every node. It has upgrade paths. The node can upgrade that caravansary building for certain features that are beneficial. But when you want to launch a caravan, you must first had a caravan that's constructed at the caravansary. And in order to construct a caravan at the caravansary, you go to the caravansary and you say, hey, I've got all these components and I want to construct a caravan.
Alright boys, it's time to move to the environment section. First, we have a video of the riverlands and the desert flora. Alpha 2 is going to have a pretty significant cross-section of different biomes. The primary ones will be forests, riverlands and desert with a little bit of badlands and other areas mixed in. In this video we can see what the density of the flora is going to look like, especially in the forest environments. What you see though does not include active resource spawners yet, because resource spawners and materials that you are going to go out and gather are also going to need to live alongside with the general foliage in these biomes. What Alpha 2 presents as an opportunity to do is to focus test among players on what is too dense, what performs well on high density, and what is visually obstructing the gatherables within that area. You can also see some of the foliage that the environment team has been creating as a part of their effort to make an interesting desert biome. Another cool thing that we'll be able to observe in Alpha 2 is how seasonal change is implemented in the desert. The weather, the giant dust storms and clouds within which interesting creatures might live, that might not be normally present unless for that certain weather.
Here's the key point. Graphics don't make a game fun. Systems make games fun. But graphics make those systems far more enjoyable. And that is kind of the perspective that we have with the game. You can have a great game that has very little compelling immersive qualities and finely made art. But if you have a game that has great systems and lives alongside with this incredibly immersive atmosphere and zones from which you get to play in, it is the best of both worlds, and that's kind of our objective.
Next up, it's time for character art. This one is the Jade Sigil, a cosmetic accessory.
I was inspired by like WWE belts, but I was like, make it Renkai.
This next one is called the Trawler's Guise, which is a costume cosmetic skin.
This one was designed quite a long time ago.
Those fishers out there interested in some fishing maybe?
And in case you missed them, we also get to see some mounts. This is the garden, and an interesting thing to note is that portions on its branches will interact with the wind, so you can expect some cool movement during storms and such. Next up is the Crested Sunplume, a large species of duck possessing a brilliant pattern of feathers.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
do love Peking duck. It's one of my favorite dishes.
Don't eat him.
Well,
He's your mount.
I don't know. Could you eat him? You found him in the wild?
Next up, we have the concept for the Minotaurs. Minotaurs are types of bosses and mobs in Ashes of Creation. The Minotaur almost are like a player character race to a degree. They have many different classes of them that exist within the world. This one has some cool mechanics in the form of stages, where during combat, reaching a certain objective will dismount him in order to engage combat by foot. Next up, we have the snake creature, as the team calls it. Snakes, or Naga, are types of bosses/mobs in Ashes of Creation. There will be several snake variants, such as Black Mamba, Cobra, and the Rattler. And it is said that these snakes are the inhabitants of a particular dungeon. We also have a Cyclops. For scale, there is a normal-sized human in the bottom right. The Cyclops is a world boss in Ashes of Creation. This boss roams the Riverlands biome and is one of the first bosses players will encounter within the game, in that area. It will take a raid to defeat this boss. Next up, we have the Rootling. Rootling was a pet cosmetic skin in a pre-order pack.
He's got a little potato butt. How many times can you
cute.
say in a game you've seen a potato butt?
We also get to see the reveal of the Empyrean female. Last month we have seen the concept, and now we get to see the model. The Nikwa have suffered some changes as well. These guys are the sister race of the Dunir dwarves, and basically they prefer islands instead of mountains.
Yes.
I think it gives a lot of character to them that I love.
These guys have a lot of rich background and culture that I think is pretty unique from a fantasy. It's a little atypical from the traditional, fantasy tropes about dwarves. And I thought it was time to innovate.
The Veiloon also get their turn for a reveal. They are the sister race of the Ayla humans, and they have a Middle Eastern racial influence. An interesting fact about the Veiloon is that they have Jinn influence in their lineage, which manifests as an essence-like rupture in their skin after stepping through the divine gateways. And last but not least, we also have a little beetle animation. Very cool. This is a combat monster. Alright boys, that will be all for today. As always, if you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing and liking the video. It's free and it keeps the channel going. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.